Welcome to the XY Advisor Podcast, a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice. To get involved, go to xyadvisor.com or simply download the XY Advisor app. Hub24 is on a mission to empower advisors to deliver better financial futures for their clients. They are dedicated to customer service excellence and delivering innovative product solutions that create value for advisors and their clients. These are just some of the reasons why advisors rate them number one for overall satisfaction and why their managed portfolio solution has been rated best in market 5 years running. Hub24 believes nothing happens in isolation. So they're working together with advisors, licensees, and industry leaders to leverage their data and technology expertise to help solve key challenges in the delivery of financial advice, so more Australians can access cost-effective advice. Welcome back to the XY Advisor Podcast. I'm Fraser Jack, and today I am joined by Tom Haigh. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Fraser. Great to be with you.
Fantastic. Now, you are the general manager of a business called MBS, or Marketing, Branding and Sales, and you generally work with advisors or advice firms. Thank you for coming on, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're also going to talk a bit about some of the work that you've done with a brand called My Money Sorted, which we'll get into a little bit later. But firstly, let's start with you. Tell us your story, and how did you get into this marketing, branding, sales concept?
Sure thing, Fraser. So my introduction to, I guess, the industry particularly was a really unusual one. I haven't come through the traditional pathway of being an advisor. My first, introduction to advice was actually meeting a guy by the name of Dan Brown about 6 years ago. So I first met Dan through a referral from a friend who was, getting some advice from Dan at the time on restructuring, and I guess made a suggestion that I get in touch with him about a few things I was considering doing personally. I was looking to start a business. We had a young family. We were buying properties. We were doing all sorts of different things, and I was working for a multinational at the time, a big corporate entity, and I guess meeting with Dan from the outset, we really struck off a really good relationship, and it was far more than service provider and client. Of course, it became much more than that very quickly. But I think through my interactions with Dan early days, I started to see or learn more about the industry and what he was involved with, and I was also probably at a point in my career where I was really considering whether property and construction, which is what I was involved with at the time, whether that was really my future. I had some very interesting times working on very big projects in Melbourne particularly, and dealing with trade unions and all sorts of interesting people, and probably could just sort of see a bit of a misalignment with, I guess, my values and what I really wanted to put my time into, I guess. And so, again, the early stage conversations with Dan probably were, not only in terms of obviously learning more about the industry, but I guess Dan really, gave me a bigger vision for my future than perhaps the one that I had at the time. And whenever you've got anyone external who, believes in you perhaps more than you do yourself, it's a pretty special thing. So that was, I guess, the beginnings of, certainly my first exposure to the financial services market. And then from there, Dan and I, really built a pretty special relationship, and have since gone on to start a couple of businesses together.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. So you came in as a client essentially into the industry, and one of the things I wanted to explore here is this is a really interesting part to me, because I like looking at the difference between tangible and intangible benefits, and you've come in thinking that you're going to get some practical or tangible advice around structures and the things that might be good for you, and you've walked away with an emotional reaction.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, Fraser. I definitely probably entered that initial meeting thinking it was going to be purely about consolidating superannuation and getting some advice on, starting a business. But it became much more than that. It was. I guess I'd liken it to having a guide or a mentor there to sort of help steer you in the right direction. And I think particularly for me, it was clarifying my goals. I had a couple of big picture ideas of what I wanted to do in my life, but I think through those early stage interactions or experiences with an advisor, with Dan and his team at the time, it was really about clarifying those goals and setting in place a plan to move towards those. So that was for me one of the biggest benefits.
Yeah, fantastic. And so then you've got your plan, you've got your goals set out. You can then move towards them. How did that, I guess, become? How did then that become you and Dan working together?
It was probably about 12 months after that first meeting that we really started to explore some ideas to work together. Like anything, and initially it's about getting to know one another and building trust in that relationship. And that happened very quickly for us, I must say. But it probably wasn't until about 12 months down the track that Dan had gone out on his own. I'd left the safety net of a employer. I'd started a small consultancy business. That's when we really started to, bounce ideas off one another. I've sort of been there alongside him since he first went out on his own back in, I'm going to say late 2015. And I guess the more exposure that I had to the direction that he was heading in, the more we started to, identify opportunities. His model has really been one of, vertical integration. So taking advice is obviously the core focus, and then looking at all of the related services that he could be bolting onto that initial business to obviously better serve the client, to grow the business, and to be more efficient. And one of those key areas was marketing and communications. From day one, branding as well is probably critical to that, and that was something he got right very early on, both with a lot of input and guidance from his wife Julie, who's fantastic in that department, with some external suppliers at the time as well. So yeah, some good help and good guidance. But I guess from the marketing standpoint, he and I had some exposure to a business coach. Who was out of the United States, a guy by the name of JT Fox. We invested an eye-watering amount of money in a coaching program that JT rolled out, and through that we really got to learn about the true benefits of investing in your marketing, both from an internal client standpoint, but also for attracting new clients to your business. And that was, for me, to a very long-winded answer, Fraser, I'm sorry about that, but the real seed for us was for a long time had been, I love to write. I loved story particularly. I loved, anything to do with personal development. And it was probably a combination of those skills and identifying that opportunity that we sort of thought, well, we're using external providers to do the marketing piece at the moment. Why wouldn't we bring this internal and build out a team around it? So that's exactly what we've done. So Dan, initially with the help of Stacey, who's still with him today, really refined an approach to marketing that's been phenomenally successful for them, and has really allowed us to use that as a bit of a guinea pig is not the right terminology, but a proven formula that's based on applying it internally before then rolling that out external. So that's probably how it all came to be.
Yeah, fantastic. I was just going to explore a little bit into that. You sort of answered a little bit of it, but the idea of moving from a construction project management based role, very sort of structured and probably a little bit regimented in the way that we always do things, into sort of a digital marketing role, which is obviously a little bit different and transformative. What was the main drive for you around that digital marketing experience? What drove you towards that?
I guess I'd spent a lot, probably 15 years leading up to that point, really trying to continue to invest in myself, to be better in every aspect of, even prior roles, and how to communicate better, how to obviously lead teams better. I was dealing with people who were typically very difficult to manage. And so that required building up a fair bit of resilience. And a big part of that for me was, investing in self-help, guidance, books, business. And that really evolved into entrepreneurship. And it was probably the culmination for me, Fraser, was reading a book called The 4 Hour Workweek, which a lot of the listeners will probably be really familiar with. And that really, I guess, was the catalyst for the big shift for me. I could see, that anything you wanted in life was truly possible if you went about it the right way. So probably a crossover, meeting Dan around a similar time as well. It was sort of a case of sort of realizing that I no longer had to stick with something just because I'd gone and done a uni degree and that was what I'd told everyone in my life that I was going to do, and it just made it easier to really pursue a new path that I was more passionate about. Luckily for me, I had some natural skill sets in. Obviously, the writing aspect, the storytelling aspect, so that was beneficial. I wasn't starting from scratch. I'd done a lot of writing prior to that point. I think probably those few things were really the drivers. Wanting to do something that I was more passionate about and truly felt I could see myself doing for the rest of my life.
Yep. So when you started the business, were you just working with financial planners, or were you just sort of taking any business to help them out?
Yeah. So we I guess from day one have been really, really focused on serving planners, and naturally we had a competitive advantage over the rest of, I guess, call them digital marketing agencies out there. That's typically our competition. It's been the intimate understanding of the market, of the client interaction, of those experiences that have delivered that point of difference for us, and hence, I guess, while we've remained focused on that, it's the one thing I would say probably with the financial services market is probably from a marketing standpoint, an uptake of marketing for advisors out there. It's not dissimilar to the number of Australians not obtaining advice. So there's varying views and figures about roughly 80 to 90% of all Australians don't obtain advice. I would say it's very similar in terms of 80 to 90% of advisors don't do any marketing. And then again, it probably comes back to that point of not really understanding the true benefits of, what they can obtain by investing in it. No different to a client who can't see the value in, an advice fee. It's very similar.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love the analogy too, by the way, just putting those two things together and saying, obviously that means that the top, let's say the top 10% of clients that are getting advice are doing well better, and probably the firms that have a structured marketing plan and schedule and budget and all those things that go with marketing are doing well.
Yeah, I'd agree. And probably it's just a different mindset, and the same would apply for clients, no doubt. They're prepared to invest in good guidance in order to achieve their goals. And for advisors that are out there that are investing in marketing, that's very commonly the case. They've got a big vision for the future of their business and they're prepared to invest.
Yeah, fantastic. So just while we're on the digital marketing space, you work with advisors and planners. If somebody wants to continue that conversation or this part of the conversation with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you in that capacity?
Sure. Yeah, just best way is marketingbranding.sales.com. Jump on the website. We've recently, opened up a free trial for any clients that are interested in, or any advisors out there who are interested in learning more about the service. For those, we're happy to provide them with their first free article. So a lot of what we do is around the content marketing. So really providing advisors with great content that they can share with potential future clients and existing clients. So if they jump on the website, they can book in a free session with me and the team, and we can get that happening for them.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, just while we're talking about that specific part, how do you produce these articles? Like, does it require the advisor to take a lot of time out of their day to do it?
It's a great question, and it's evolved over time. Funnily enough, because we'd always produced articles in house. So for Dan and his practices within Coastal Advice Group, so over the years it had always been, okay, what are we going to come up with as an article this week? It would typically be Dan. He's probably on the couch after watching the Eels play on a Sunday afternoon. He'd had a couple of beers, and all right, you'd get this text message or an email, and it'd be 15 different ideas about articles that we could be producing for the next few months. And that was really the approach early days. It was what's in our head, what do we think clients would value? The shift for us has been just purely taking a research focus. So developing an intimate understanding of the information that clients are seeking based on their situation in life. And I guess back to hopefully answer your question, Fraser, when we first started marketing branding sales, we took the view, very wrongly, of course, that if we just provided advisors with ideas, headlines, and templates for writing articles, they'd be able to produce them all themselves. But what we know, certainly today, is that advisors are just so time poor, and ultimately that's not an area of their business that they should really be investing a lot of time in. And I only say that from the point of view that what we know is that for advisors who are really, I guess, exceeding today, is they're putting more and more time into client relationships. They're not getting caught in the nitty-gritty of back-end admin. They're not doing their own paraplanning, and they're most certainly not writing all of their own articles. So we, I guess to that end, we research, we write, we curate and deliver content for our clients.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm assuming that, and I might be wrong here, but advisors have ideas, opinions, beliefs, thought leadership concepts that they want to try and get across, and so do they then tell you what they are, and then you take those and mold them into an article? Is that right?
It's a good question. So it's probably in two parts. So what we always encourage our clients to do is personalize, the comms that they're providing, particularly for their existing client base. So the best advisors are out there are continually communicating or consistently communicating with their existing clients. And those personalized insights, whether that's part of an EDM each month, a monthly mail out to their clients, their database, a monthly mail out to those that are on their database who haven't yet engaged as a client. It's a phenomenal way to start and build a relationship. And it sounds a little bit crazy to say that, but the experience for us has been, by consistently communicating, people get to know you, like you, and trust you before ultimately they make a buying decision. And for many clients, and certainly in our experience with marketing, branding, sales even, it could be 6 or 8 months from a first interaction to someone actually, being ready to obtain advice or to take up your services. So I guess to your point, Fraser, phenomenally powerful to layer in the personal insights. We take prompts from clients all the time about what they want to be communicating, but I think what we do is we just very mindful of taking those ideas and distilling them down into things that people will engage with. Because quite often the case is the content is fantastic, but it's not packaged in the right way. And if it's not packaged in the right way, and by that I mean a really intriguing headline particularly, then ultimately people just don't engage.
Yep. I agree. I'm a massive believer in that the power of that digital marketing, but consistency in comms is a huge part of that. I think I probably said this before, but I think we've developed trust very quickly in real life situations when you can meet people with a proximity. But in areas of lockdown or in areas of digital communications, that consistency of communication develops trust over time. to a similar degree as meeting somebody, but obviously meeting somebody does it a lot faster. Thank you for sharing that about that part of the business. I think it's a great area that advisors can lean into with regards to them having a marketing strategy, having a consistent communication strategy with their to their ideal or their best client, and they will end up attracting a lot more of those over time. And I also like the idea of it being a compound interest type conversation too, where the more information they get, the more consistent, and it is over a long period of time. It just compounds that interest that they would have in the business and the value that the business provides.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, I think, a really good point that you make around the long-term aspect to this. This is not a short game. We do have lots of conversations where that comes up. Oh, how quickly do you think I'll see results with this? And the answer, of course, is different for everyone. How long have you been doing it? What does your online presence look like? How polished is your brand? I often sort of think about this in terms of other professional services. If your first interaction with a dentist was walking through, a retail shop, and they're positioned out the back in the back room, and it's dark and poorly lit, and they've got files all over the desk, and it's going to be very different to one where you walk in and there's a receptionist that greets you, and there's a nice lounge to sit at, and everything's clean and tidy, and you immediately have a perception of what that brand, the quality of the service that brand will offer. So in a digital marketing sense, that's your shop front. Have you invested in a website that clearly articulates the benefits that you can deliver for your clients? Can they engage with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? If they are themselves sitting on the couch on a Sunday afternoon, if they're researching information and service providers, can they jump on there, check you out, read some of your articles, and understand, the value that you can deliver? And the same applies in a marketing sense. And ultimately, those results that you just mentioned, and obviously the long term, is a big part of that. Continuing to invest and making sure that, I think you accept the fact that for some people they'll be ready to make a decision within the first meeting. For others, it takes much longer.
Yep. Yeah, no, fantastic. That's pretty much the same with clients too. Some take longer, and some ready to go straight away. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I wanted to dive into some of the work that you have been doing in this space. If we go a little bit deeper with Dan and the concept of the My Money Sorted branding and how that's working. Tell us about where. I guess let's go back. Tell us about why that was created in the first place.
Yeah, it's I guess the realization. Or probably, I think, seeing the statistics around the Australians not obtaining advice. It's phenomenal to see, again, 80 to 90% of the country not seeking out advice. And depending on who you listen to or what you read, there's always an excuse behind that. It's either, well, advice is too expensive, or there's a lack of trust with the industry post Royal Commission and, days gone past. In our observations, those are obviously factors. There's absolutely no doubt. The cost of advice is a challenge for a lot of people, and trust, it's an issue for some people as well. But for us, it was, I guess, a realization that most people just don't realize the benefits of obtaining advice. They don't see that guidance can transform, their lives and ultimately give them a better life. I was the same until having someone suggest to me I should have a chat with Dan Brown. I had no clue of what benefit I stood to obtain by having that conversation and becoming a financial planning client. And it's that transformation and the better life that ultimately is often not articulated well. So what we set out to do with My Money Sorted was get more advice to more Australians. And we knew that the best way to do that is to lead with value and to build relationships, build trust, give people, I guess, some phenomenal insights that can help them on their journey. And that might be a case that they do 4 out of 5 things themselves. They take that information, they apply it, and if they do, fantastic. But what we know is that when it comes to personal finance, particularly planning for retirement, there are complexities there that really mean that people truly benefit from, getting a professional on their side, getting an advisor to help them to plan out their future. Quite often we know that it might be a case of even the cost of advice itself is cancelled out by the fact that they had 7 super accounts and they were paying all these different fees. We often joke. There's a friend of mine in Newcastle. I think he set the record. He had nine different super accounts, and he was paying this exorbitant level of fees each year just purely by getting advice and having someone help him consolidate that. He was ahead. So there are all these little things that we can be doing to, better educate Australians on the fact that an advisor can be there to not only, get them moving in the right direction, but they can help them save money and make money at the same time as well. So I guess the journey with My Money Sorted is really just to lead with super valuable information that can help people make better decisions by being more informed and having greater awareness of those benefits.
Yeah, fantastic. And I like the concept of, when sometimes people don't want to look silly when they walk into an advice, situation, because they have to then confess their sins and say what they've done and all of their poor decisions along the way, which we all have, even as, even knowing what we all know about money and we all make decisions that aren't necessarily the best long-term outcome if we're getting emotional with them. But look, I think, bringing people towards all that stepping stone, I've often called it too, because it's a big step to go into an advice relationship. It's a big step. And so I feel like this is producing a whole lot of small steps that lead up to that big step.
Yeah, it's the trust thing. It's ultimately realization that people take time to develop an understanding of what they stand to benefit from engaging. I think there's a lot of hesitation there to say, well, like you say, am I going to walk into an initial meeting and get pinned down and have to pay all this money, versus taking the approach of allowing them to check you out online, allowing them to consume some content that you put out, about topics that are relevant and important to them. And so once you start to deliver value in that way, it completely changes the relationship. I think a lot of this for me is the law of reciprocity. Ultimately, if you give people something without expecting anything in return, ultimately, it will come back in time. So what we're ultimately doing with My Money Sorted is delivering freely available information that's highly valuable, that will help people on their journey. But what we know in time is that when they ultimately do need some help with implementing what they've learned, then they'll remember the source of that information. And if it's us, fantastic. If it's someone else out there that's providing highly valuable content through a platform, great as well. For us, My Money Sorted is not about dominating the industry. It's about helping get advice to more Australians. And what we know right now is there are so many people out there that stand to benefit from this. There is opportunity for everybody in this space. There is opportunity, and hence why we're doing this for advisors all across the country. Quite often we get asked the question, Dan particularly, why don't you just do all of this for your own businesses? Why would you help other advisors? And that's the realization. The market is big enough for all of us. There is so much opportunity out there. If we share our great ideas, if we share the things that we've learned, collectively we can have a much bigger impact. So competition for us is never a concern. It's more about making sure that we take the right approach and that we help overcome those perceived or real barriers to advice.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, how did you put it all together? As in, work out what you wanted to talk about, work out what you were going to present, and how it was going to come across. Tell us all about the actual building of it.
Sure. So I guess we've been really lucky over the years to work with some incredibly smart people, and particularly in the SEO space. So for those who aren't familiar, search engine optimization, and what that really comes down to is developing a deep understanding of the information that people out there are seeking. So our ideal audience, our ideal clients, what is the information that they're searching for on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And so we invested a significant amount of time and money in, I guess, conducting some national research into what that looked like. And we identified that each month there's roughly 9 million searches related to personal finance. And those are all linked to goals. And typically it's how to get the best return, how to retire sooner, how to pay off my home loan 5 years earlier, really specific things that people are seeking out information around. So what we really did was took the time to develop a deep understanding of that, not only on the kind of search terms that people are entering into a Google search bar, but once they do, engage with information that comes up on page one, where else are they going? What else are they seeking out? What other information would be of benefit to them? So really building out a content structure that helps them from their initial question or their initial problem along the entire journey towards reaching their goal. And that ultimately for us is about helping to connect them with great service providers out there, great advisors, people who are specialists in the things that they're actually, reading about and wanting to know more about and ideally wanting some help with. So that's sort of been the pathway for us. And the content that's on the site today is really our foundational, research-backed content. And we'll be building that out over coming months so that it is a real content powerhouse in this space. And it's, I guess, content that's based on an intimate understanding of what people want.
Fantastic! I love the way you use the data to work out what's the good thing to talk about, rather than just making assumptions around. Let's talk about this week because I happen to have done some work on it or I know about it. It certainly makes a lot of sense to work out, what people are actually after before you start delivering.
Most definitely, yeah. And not to say that wasn't our approach a few years ago, Fraser. It was genuinely, let's think about what we should be writing about and put it out there versus take. Dan likes to compare this. I don't know if you're a Back to the Future fan, but when they find the sports almanac and they get the answers to all of the future sporting events, Biff steals the magazine. But it's been very much like that for us. It was such a shift in our approach. And I guess really comforting as well, knowing that we're investing a lot of time and a lot of money in producing something that is based on what we know people are searching for.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, tell me about the platform itself. So, My Money Sorted, is this a platform for all advisors, or is it just certain advisors?
Sure. So, I guess the approach for us in terms of engaging the industry and getting them as part of it, it's a big part of what we're looking to do with the future. So, what we really want to do through the early stages is develop a deep understanding of the consumer journey on the website. So how are they engaging with the content, and how do they want that interaction to flow through to meeting an advisor? And so what we really, and I guess doing a lot of work to model this off some very successful sites out of the States particularly, and how they manage those interactions. Because what we want in engaging with industry partners is to make sure that they get a really valuable outcome as well, which is a potential lead, a potential client who I guess is going to be a right fit for their services. We know that that's not always 100% the case, but ultimately we want to make sure that there is a process in place so that once that consumer engages, once that they take that next step and want to seek out an advisor who's best suited to deliver advice to them, that they understand the process, they understand who they're going to be having a conversation with, and they understand how that will all flow. So really developing that out so that the industry partners that we bring on, and we're going to be obviously very selective with this. We want the best of the best. We want to be dealing with great advisors out there who are specialists in what they do, who have got a track record and who deliver obviously enormous value for their existing clients. So that engagement process is underway. We're seeking expressions of interest from advisors out there who would like to be part of that. And then obviously as we develop out the platform, we want to make that obviously an incredibly valuable thing for not only the consumers, but for the advisors that can obviously engage with that audience.
Yeah, fantastic. So you're looking for advisors out there, and then you will engage with them to say, look, this is what topics are so hot right now, or whatever we want to call it. These are the topics that are being searched a lot at this time of the year, and imagine there's times of the year when certain topics are very relevant, especially around the end of financial year and those sorts of things. And then you'll say to people, we want your ideas, opinions, beliefs, articles, and we'll help write them. Is that how it works?
That's exactly, yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, at the moment, what we're doing with our existing clients, who obviously we've got phenomenal relationships with through MBS, is giving them the opportunity to get exposure on the site. We want to help, ultimately, obviously help them grow their business as well. And if we can feature them on the site as a subject matter expert in a particular area, then ultimately there's value for us, there's value for the advisor, and there's enormous value for the consumer who gets to engage with that content.
Yeah, well, fantastic. And how do you get the content to consumers? How do they find My Money Sorted?
So really, the big focus for us, Fraser, through this website is organic search. And so the SEO approach that I mentioned a little earlier has been incredibly important to that aspect of it. So what we know to be true from Google's standpoint is that they're out there. They've got their bots crawling all of these sites every month. They're really looking to identify which are the sites that are doing a couple of things, which are the sites that are delivering highly relevant, specific information that answers the questions that people are obviously searching in relation to, but also a demonstrated level of authority. So it's fine to go and write a half-page blog article that answers questions on how to retire earlier, but ultimately, if people jump on that website and engage with that article for 5 seconds and bounce off, that's a real cue for Google to sort of go, hang on a minute, this person's got relevant content, but is it actually answering the questions properly? And is it based on authority and understanding and ability? I guess probably better put, is the person delivering the content well qualified to be talking about it? So it's interesting how Google's algorithms work, and they're always changing, which makes it difficult. But really what we're seeking to do is provide the most relevant, insightful, high-value content that is specific to those search terms, so that Google begins to reward us in time by saying, these guys are doing something special here. We can see that when people engage, they're on the site for 3 or 4 minutes. They're looking at other articles. They must know what they're talking about. Let's reward them with some traffic. So big part of it's organic search. Obviously, a social strategy as well that they're really building out at the moment to, I guess, build an audience, build a following, and ideally, make this something that people really want to share with friends.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it, because I think that a lot of planners, advisors, they'll have opinions, they'll have ideas, and they can get to that article space. But it's very easy to set up a shack in the middle of the desert and have nobody walk past it, right? and see, and you go to all that trouble and effort to produce something that is going to help somebody or help transform somebody from a point to another point. And then if nobody reads it, it doesn't actually help anybody.
It's so well put, and I must say we've probably seen some Taj Mahals in the middle of the desert too. There's that. It is a sad thing for a lot, not only advisors but a lot of service providers. We often refer to them as the best kept secret in their local market, because that's ultimately the case. They've got these phenomenal skills. They can deliver so much value, but if nobody knows about that, then you really don't stand a chance. So for us, that's been the shift. It's about saying, well, let's put you on the map. Let's make you a bit more prolific in the content that you're putting out. Let's make sure that everybody in your local market knows who you are, what you can do, what you do, and how you can benefit them. Absolutely the case.
Yeah, putting people on the map, but also making sure they stay on the map, because constantly everybody else is trying to get in front of them on the map, right?
Yeah, very true.
So if you do nothing, you'll get lost pretty quickly. So thanks for going through that. How's the platform is now set up? It's ready to go. There's content on there. You're getting eyeballs on the content. Where do you want to take it from here?
It's a great question. Yeah, we've been live for a week now, a whole week, which has been exciting. It's been a big journey, of course, to get to this point. But the evolution for us is really about continuing to improve the user experience. So a big part of, I guess, the next phase for us is starting to increase the level of interaction and introducing things like multi-goal tools, projection-based software, apps, and the like that allow someone to come in and get a better understanding of, where they're at. As we know with advice, a huge part of that is people wanting to know, are they on track to achieve their goals, and if they're not on track, what do they need to do? So it's probably for us about, in two parts, really improving the ability for someone to come onto the website and develop a more personal understanding of their situation, and then for us to be able to deliver insights based on that. So really make it an intuitive site that's not just here's a whole heap of blog articles, read them one after the other. It's, well, you came in through this stream. What we know is that people who read this article would benefit from, having a look at, at what age they could retire. And then if ultimately they can see that, hey, it says I'm going to be able to retire at 69, I want to retire at 60, what then can we serve them with to help them understand what steps that they can take to better achieve that goal? So that's a big part of it. The other aspect is really building out the different forms of content on the site. What we know is that some people love to read, some people love to listen to audio like this, and others obviously like video. So really taking that foundational content that we're building out on a daily basis and delivering that in different media.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Depending on how the human likes to learn or best absorbs, or whatever that fits into their daily routine. I know obviously I like podcasting and I like listening to podcasts because I can listen to them without having to use my eyes. I can use my eyes for other things like driving or walking or whatever it might be. So you're absolutely right. Producing content in multiple formats is certainly going to build that out. So that's fantastic. And you mentioned sort of that you recently released it, and for those people that are listening to this podcast in years to come, that was mid-September 2021. So from then on, it's all been growth. Thank you so much for explaining that to us. Now, if somebody wants to get involved in or know a bit more about that, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, sure. So you can head to mymoneysorted.com.au and register your interest there. Or alternatively, our central email is hello@mymoneysorted.com.au. Drop an inquiry there and one of the team will get back to you.
Fantastic. Tom, thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us today about all the work that you're doing with advisors around the country. Really appreciate it. And if somebody wants to call out to you directly, maybe LinkedIn, what's the best way to find you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to be as active as possible on LinkedIn, so you can check me out there, or just shoot me a note on email, tom@marketingbranding.sales.com.
Fantastic. Really appreciate your time. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Fraser. Been a lot of fun.